Bills Mafia, what's going on? Happy Tuesday, August 19th, for your edition of today's First and Five podcast. I am your host, Dave Myers, owner and founder of Built in Buffalo. And yes, we have some news. It seems like the wide receiver drama is going to continue on into the end of the preseason and into the regular season. So, familiar face again is going to be visiting with the Buffalo Bills and Gabe Davis. So, this is obviously the hottest topic that's going on. It's all over Twitter right now. Everybody's talking about it. What would it look like for a reunion with Gabe Davis? Now, it seems like a lot of Bills fans are on the fence one way or the other. Some fans like it, some fans don't. A lot of people want to talk about the negative way he left the team when he was injured, and we saw him arguing with fans. Everybody brings up drops and stuff like that, but you can't deny the fact that Gabe Davis was a very productive receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Now, we don't know what a contract would look like. We don't know what Gabe's asking for. We obviously know he's coming off of an injury from last season. Looks like he's in full health. Looks like he's fully recovered. I've seen some things, the social media doctors on X talking about the timeline should be good. He should be good to go. He should be able to pass a physical, things like that. So I just wanted to come on here and have an open dialogue about it. I have some mixed emotions about it. I have some mixed feelings about it. I like to look at things from both perspectives, right? Pros and cons, positive, negatives, however you want to spin it. If you could do one thing for me before we get really going here, if you could smash the like button, that helps me in all the algorithms, especially on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know that when First and Five and all of our other live shows are up on the channel. And if you want to drop some comments, let's get a nice discussion about Gabe Davis going in the chat. If you're watching this in the rewatch, just write some comments in. Do you think it would be positive for the Bills to sign Gabe Davis? What would it look like? Are you for it? Are you against it? Thumbs up, thumbs down, however you want to do it in the chat, in the comment section. That would be great. So I put everything up there on the screen. There's a lot of pros to bringing in a Gabe Davis. To me, the biggest thing that stands out about this wide receiver room since the start of the offseason is the Mack Hollins role, right? We saw on Hard Knocks, Joe Brady, there was a clip when he was standing in front of the projector screen, and he was talking about, look at this. This is a Joe Brady route. You're going to block. You're not going to get targeted on this route, but you're doing your 111th. You're getting downfield, and you're helping whoever has the ball in their hands, extend the play, get some yards, things like that. And when Mack Hollins left, I think a lot of Bills Mafia was like, well, who are we going to get to, replace Mack Hollins? And obviously, Mack Hollins, the persona, obviously the barefoot and the costumes and the stuff like that. But then there was also Mack Hollins, the player, who was a huge part and had played a huge role in this team, not just catching passes, blocking on offense, but he was a key piece to the Bills' special teams. And we all know how much McDermott likes his special teams guys that are willing to be gunners, guys that are willing to do the not sexy plays and positions in cover punts and cover kicks and things like that. And the Bills brought in Joshua Palmer, and I don't think that it was a 1-for-1 swap. I do think you get more of production out of a Joshua Palmer. Obviously, we've seen in his career he's been a more productive wide receiver in his tenure with the Chargers. So I think the Bills needed to find and are still looking for that guy that is willing to block on run plays, block on pass plays, run routes just for the sake of running routes. And Gabe Davis, for all accounts, can be that guy. Big physical receiver, can block really well. As you all know, he was always the tush push guy. But he was also thrown in line to block on pass and run plays. He was that contested catch guy that we hoped would just eventually break out obviously the huge game against the Chiefs, right, where he had the 4 touchdowns and 200 yards and all that stuff, and we thought that that was going to be his coming out party. We thought that that was going to be, okay, here we go. This is the launching point, but then it just never really went anywhere. And I'm not even going to harp on, a lot of fans want to bring up the drops. Okay. A lot of fans want to talk about, his inability to make plays in big moments, right? Besides the Chiefs game, that divisional game, the 13 seconds game, take that game away from the equation. A lot of fans, say, well, we're just waiting for him to have a Gabe Davis moment. And there was a sprinkle here and there where he would make some nice plays. And, I vividly remember the season opener against the Rams coming off that Super Bowl win and the Bills going to play their Thursday night football. It opened up the NFL season and Gabe Davis had a big game. He showed out and everybody was like, oh yeah, Gabe's coming. And then it kind of seemingly was just average. Honestly, it was just average. Then on, I mean, if you look at his numbers, I mean, he's got 33 career rushing touchdowns or 33 career receiving touchdowns, including the postseason with the Bills. That's nothing to sneeze at in just 4 years. He was a very productive receiver. And depth of target guy, was always a big depth of target guy, was always that big downfield threat. It just never seemed to be consistent. So what does that mean in regards to Gabe Davis playing with the Bills for 4 years? Gabe Davis getting a huge contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars, playing there only one season, getting injured, getting released, and he's now a free agent. This week will be his second visit with the Bills. He's obviously scheduled to visit with the Steelers this week as well. So I think if something was set in stone with the Steelers, I don't know if that visit, now things could change, right? Obviously it's the NFL. It's an ever evolving landscape when free agent visits happen. So I see the chat's very active. I appreciate you guys. Make sure you smash the like button if you're watching me on X. If you're watching me on Facebook, go ahead and share this. Please drop comments. Comments help the algorithm on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like button. It helps us out a lot. If you could do anything to support the brand, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. So all of the talk this offseason, back, obviously Brandon Beane won on WGR, and there was that whole, issue of him just kind of going off about the wide receiver position and saying he doesn't understand how fans and media outlets and whatnot can say that he's ignored the position. And, we scored 30 points a game in 8 straight games last year, second highest scoring team in the NFL, all this stuff that he spewed. And I simply think that the WGR guys were just saying, hey, look, we have a lot of big contracts coming up. We have a lot of big extensions coming up. We need to start drafting replacement players that can be on team-friendly deals, i.e. rookie contracts, right? And I think that was the biggest point of what they were trying to get at. So then you see Brandon Beane goes out and he signs Elijah Moore immediately, like literally the same day that he had that rant on WGR. And everybody's like, see, he's reacting, he's doing this and doing that. And obviously, since March, things have come out that Brandon Beane was absolutely going to look at the wide receiver position in the draft. He didn't say he was going to draft one high, first or second round, but he was monitoring the position and he was seeing how the boards were going to fall. And they obviously drafted very defense heavy, rightfully so. And now here we are, right? We have Elijah Moore. We don't know what Elijah Moore is, honestly. Like, I was very high on the signing because I thought that the lack of quarterback play that Elijah Moore has had in his career was kind of holding him back. But here, if you watch the preseason game, again, take preseason for what it's worth. It's preseason. He had 2 drops in the preseason game. So I don't know if his position on the team is secured. You have Curtis Samuel, who for 2 seasons now, going into his second season now, just can't seem to stay healthy. Is this a situation where maybe the Bills are looking for a guy to be on the roster so Curtis Samuel can go on the beginnings of the season IR? That could be a potential. Are the Bills looking to keep 6 receivers and they're not completely sold on Tyrell Shavers or Laviska Shenault or KJ Hamler? So maybe Gabe's competition. So it's very interesting, the dynamics of the room, but I will keep going back to the fact that the Bills do not have that role player that they had in Mack Hollins last year. He came in, and a lot of fans didn't know what he was about, who he was. They saw that he was kind of a journeyman wide receiver, played some special teams. They just assumed that Mack Hollins was going to be that McDermott special teams guy, right? We thought he was just going to be a gunner. He was going to cover kicks and punts, maybe get some targets here and there. But as the season progressed, the trust factor that Josh had with Mack Hollins to make plays seemed to grow increasingly more as the season progressed. He had that really big catch to end the half against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. That was just an amazing play. And for a guy who was asked to do all the dirty work, cover the punts and cover kicks and block and do all this stuff, for him to make a big play like that says a lot about the player, right? And a lot about the trust that Josh had in that receiver. Now, as the season starts, obviously Josh Allen has really good chemistry with 𝐾. Okay, so I'm going to take 𝐾 out of this equation because we know what he is. We know that he's a top 15, top fringe, top 10 ish slot receiver in the NFL. He's obviously the Bills. They don't say they have a number one, but I wholeheartedly believe that 𝐾 is the Bills' number one wide receiver. It's different because people usually look at an outside receiver as a number one, but 𝐾 is the Bills' number one receiver. So then after that, you obviously have Keon Coleman, who physical stature is very similar to Gabe Davis. He's going to be that guy who's going to be your red zone contested catch guy, big body guy, physical. You have Joshua Palmer, another big guy that can separate, get downfield, and make plays. And then after that, you have Curtis Samuel, you have Elijah Moore, you have Tyrell Shavers, you have Laviska Shenault. You have those guys kind of jockeying for that 4, 5, and 6 position. And now the interesting question about Gabe Davis is, because we know how he is with Josh Allen. We know how Josh Allen feels about Gabe Davis. Their relationship was great. They seem to be, on pace and on par, and they seem to have they coexist really well. And I think Josh did trust him, even though there was some times when Gabe, was unable to make big plays. I think Josh still trusted him. They were on the same team together for 4 years. Gabe came in when Josh had that breakout year in 2020. And a lot of people have to, remember and start thinking about the fact that we all talk about the 2020 season as the Josh Allen coming out party, right? It was the Josh Allen breakout season. He had MVP type stats, really looked dynamic in every aspect of his game. We all immediately assume and we tie Stefon Diggs to the Josh Allen coming out party of 2020. But a lot of people don't give some credit to Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis, that was his rookie season. That was he had a really big season. Stefon Diggs even was joking seemingly all the time about, you're catching more touchdowns than me, you need to slow down. Now, a lot of that could be because of the Stefon Diggs alpha number one wide receiver, aspect, right? He was warranting coverage. So Gabe Davis was the unknown. He was a rookie, right? But I think to some degree, we have to start talking about Gabe Davis was a portion of Josh Allen's progression in 2020, that big leap that he took in year 3. We have to talk about that. That has to be part of the conversation. So to me, I honestly have thought all along, since the beginning of training camp, that the Bills were going to keep 6 wide receivers. Who was going to be the 6th guy? Was it going to be Tyrell Shavers? Was it going to be Laviska Shenault? Was it going to be KJ Hamler? Well, Shenault can return punts, and Laviska Shenault's looked really good for 2 years now. So I think it's been kind of, I don't want to say it's been Tyrell Shavers' position to lose, but he's been the more consistent guy. And if you watch Sunday's preseason game, if if you, for whatever reason, would want to go back and look at that travesty of a preseason game, 𝐬𝐫𝐞 𝐬𝐜 was playing in the fourth quarter. And that doesn't bode well for his chances on the roster. Now, I know against the Giants, he had some nice kick returns. He did return a punt. He was out there playing gunner. He had that nice 2-point conversion catch. Like, I know all of that, but I think Gabe Davis is a better version of 𝐬𝐫𝐞 𝐬𝐜. I also think that Gabe Davis is a better version of Tyrell Shavers. Now, people will argue with me back and forth that we know what Gabe Davis's ceiling is. Okay, that's fine, but we're not asking Gabe Davis to come in and be wide receiver 2 anymore, right? We would be asking Gabe Davis to be the Mack Hollins role, run some routes, do some blocking, make some plays if targeted. That's all they're going to ask of him. Now, the one key piece to this, and I saw the comment in the comment section, is the special teams aspect of it, because you have to roster special teams. You have to, whether it's backup linebackers, backup safeties, backup corners, backup wide receivers, rookies, draft picks, things like that. So that's something that is Gabe Davis willing to do that as part of, like I said, the Mack Hollins-esque role. We don't know. I'm not sure if that's ever been asked of him. I'm not sure if that's something that is going to be asked of him. All I know is that going into a season, I'd rather have Gabe Davis as my wide receiver 6, 5 than a Tyrell Shavers. And who knows, maybe Gabe has a new outlook on, what he is as a receiver. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe he just wants to come in and help contribute and get a Super Bowl ring. Maybe he's at a point in his career where he chased the big contract. He got the big contract. It didn't work out. He had an injury. It didn't work out with the Jaguars. He's back in a familiar space. He's back with a familiar quarterback who is coming off an MVP season. The offense is schemed completely different. Maybe he's been on the outside looking at how the Bills operated last season. I'm pretty sure he was on the record this offseason saying that he was paying close attention, obviously, because he has relationships and bonds with the players on this team. He was paying attention to how the Bills were doing and how Josh Allen was playing and how things have evolved in Buffalo and things like that. So, again, it's interesting. The visit is scheduled for this week. Not quite sure what contract looks like. He's getting money still from Jacksonville because they released him and he had a bunch of guaranteed money when he signed there. So I'm not sure what that looks like. So I'm on board for it. If he's willing to come in at a reasonable deal, because obviously the Bills have just over $1 million available in salary cap. So it would have to be something where it's cost effective for the team. I'm all for it. I'm all for, Gabe coming in and not being forced targets. I'm all for Gabe coming in and working his way back into, a good rapport with Josh Allen. I don't really see a downside to it. A lot of people are going to argue, well, he would be taking reps away from an upstart, a guy who's on a trajectory like a Tyrell Shavers. Well, I think we know what Gabe Davis is. We don't know what Tyrell Shavers is. He's a guy who had a long bubble screen 69-yard touchdown reception in a meaningless part of a game. He had a big reception in a preseason game playing against the 2s and 3s against the Giants. He had a nice reception, in the game against the Bears. But he's also a guy that would be nice as a depth piece that would be on the practice squad. Same with like a 𝐬𝐫𝐞 𝐬𝐜. Like if you head down the stretch and you have 𝐬𝐫𝐞 𝐬𝐜 on your practice squad and you need a guy to call up for punt returns, have at it. He's there. So the history is there. The history with Josh is there. I feel like it wouldn't be a bad thing to bring in a Gabe Davis, because people get caught up in the whole how his career with the Bills, how his initial contract ended. People get caught up in looking at, he was dropping passes, or he just wasn't reliable, or, he just wasn't he just didn't turn out to be what everybody thought he was going to be after he exploded. His rookie year was nice, and then he had that big postseason when he went off against the Chiefs. And a lot of the pressure, I think, I don't think it was self-inflicted. I think a lot of us were hoping that he was going to be that guy. A lot of us wanted him to be that guy. And then there was signs when, a lot of us who have group texts or group chats would be like, there's Gabe Davis. All right, there's the big Gabe Davis play. But then there was times when we felt like, where's Gabe Davis? Like, we need a big play from Gabe Davis. Like, they're blanketing Diggs. We need somebody else to make a play. So I don't know. To me, I think if you bring in Gabe, if it's a team-friendly contract, which I think he's not going to be asking for much, if you just have him be a version of Mac Hollins from last year where the expectations aren't there. I think it's a low-risk, high-reward situation. Get him some targets. Get him involved when you can. If not, he's your third, fourth, or fifth wide receiver. There's nothing wrong with having a Gabe Davis as your third, fourth, or fifth receiver. There's just not. So I see a lot of comments coming through. I wanted to get all that out there. I know that was a rough 21 minutes, but again, the news came out that he's visiting with the Bills. Hopefully we'll get some insight after the visit happens. Now, to me, and I'm going to change courses here because I think 22 minutes on Gabe Davis, I think, is plenty on the wide receiver room and Gabe Davis. I've talked about the wide receivers seemingly the last 2 weeks, and I just want this stuff to play out. Pick the 5 or 6 you're going to go with, and then let's move on. To me, it's interesting, and I put something out on social media yesterday about the safety position, and I'm not going to harp on this too much. I see you guys in the chat are talking about it. The safety position to me right now is the biggest glaring need on this team. Say what you want about Taylor Rapp. Say what you want about Damar Hamlin. Say what you want about Cole Bishop. Say what you want about Derek Forrest. I don't think that going into the season with high expectations like we have, being concerned about safety is a good thing. When McDermott's defense for the first 7 years he was here, safety was a position that was locked down. Now, I understand you can't just replace a Jordan Poyer and you can't just replace a Micah Hyde. But to me, that's the position that's the position that should have been looked at earlier than it was to have a contingency plan going forward. Now, I think the signing of Taylor Rapp when Poyer and Hyde were still here was great. I think it was get him introduced to the Bills scheme, get him a season under his belt, and have him be a contingency plan for one of those two guys. That worked out. And then you spent a second-round draft pick on Cole Bishop. Now, you can't knock the player. You can't knock the player for injuries. Like, that's if he has a completely healthy college career or a couple small injuries here or there, like, you can't knock the guy for that. But the best ability is to have availability. And what I saw on Sunday, although he only played 16 snaps, it was limited. It was a limited sample size. What I saw on Sunday is by far not enough to be able to start week 1. What I saw from Damar Hamlin last season, what I saw from Damar Hamlin against the Giants in week 1 preseason, what I saw from Damar Hamlin, he was the lowest graded Bills defender in PFF. Say what you want about PFF, like, there's a grading system. And if you understand the grading system, you know that it actually does mean something. It's valuable. But I saw enough from Damar Hamlin last year. I saw enough from Damar Hamlin the first 2 preseason games. Doesn't look like he's giving full effort. Doesn't look like he understands assignments. Doesn't look like he puts himself or other players in proper position to make a play or to stop a play. The opening drive against the Bears was embarrassing. To be honest with you, Damar Hamlin was diving to try to make a tackle. Cole Bishop was jumping over a diving Damar Hamlin. Like we can't have that. And I understand it's preseason. I understand there's still time to figure things out. But like McDermott said last week, we're running out of time. We're running out of time at the safety position, and especially with Cole Bishop, to figure it out. And then on the other hand, you have Taylor Rapp, who seemingly gets banged up a lot. And again, you can't fault players for injuries, but part of Taylor Rapp's how he plays a physical style similar to Taron Johnson, like a part of the injuries are self-inflicted. Like if you look at the injury that Taron Johnson had against the Giants, like that seemed to be self-inflicted because he was playing 1,000 miles an hour, which is how he plays. And fine, I get that. But we have to figure out the safety position. I'm not saying throw money at Justin Simmons. I'm not saying find a guy and throw money at him. But if there's somebody there, somebody that needs to be an honest look. It needs to be something that is addressed. And obviously, we thought that Cole Bishop would progress from year 1 to year 2. Maybe he will. We were talking about Terrell Bernard. Year 1, he played that one game and didn't look great. And then Tremaine Edmonds left. And then we were playing preseason games with Terrell Bernard at middle linebacker. And a lot of us were like, oh, yikes. Like, is Tyrell Dotson going to be, is he going to be the middle linebacker? Like, what are we doing? And then Terrell Bernard picked up the game and he figured things out. So coaching aspect, the player progression aspect, I'm a little concerned. So hopefully we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Obviously, there's one more preseason game against the Buccaneers on Saturday, and then they have a little bit of time, as rosters get cut down to 53, maybe there will be something that some trees get shaken and some things fall out of trees, and there will be a free agent safety that would work in this Bills system. I honestly think the Bills would value from having a veteran safety on this roster. It doesn't mean he needs to start all 17 games. It doesn't mean that he needs to just take over reps for Cole Bishop. What it means is if there's a veteran out there like a Justin Simmons that a Cole Bishop can learn from, because I can tell you right now, say what you want about Taylor Rapp. He's a very serviceable safety, and I think he can start 17 games and be productive for the Bills and be a good safety. But is Cole Bishop in that room learning a ton from Damar Hamlin? And that's not a shot at Damar Hamlin. I don't want anybody to sit here and think I'm taking shots at Damar Hamlin. I just know his ceiling. We saw it last year, and it wasn't good enough on a roster that is fighting for a Super Bowl, fighting to get the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I think there needs to be another veteran. They brought in a Derek Forrest, who we were sold on that he's started games in the league, right? I don't even know if he's going to make the 53 at this point. Like, he played on Sunday. Nothing really stood out. I didn't come away with anything other than he was on the field because they needed a safety on the field. I haven't heard anything from camp. I haven't heard anything that he's pushing for a starting position. I haven't really heard anything other than the fact that he started for NFL teams in his career. Okay, cool. Mike Edwards also started for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he didn't even make the roster last year when they signed him. So I don't know if there was another way they could have addressed it. A lot of rumblings around the draft were that the Bills they were looking at Malachi Starks and this guy and that guy. And then obviously people laughed at that and said, how would we do that when we need defensive linemen and we need a corner and we need a defensive tackle and all this stuff. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do at the safety position, but I think it needs to be addressed. I don't know if you need to restructure Deion Dawkins and save a bunch of money, if you need to restructure a Dawson Knox and save a bunch of money, but something needs to happen for the Bills to free up a little bit of cap space, bring in a veteran. And if the veteran gets benched halfway through the season because they feel like Cole Bishop is ready to go, so be it. You have that veteran if something happens to Cole Bishop or Taylor Rapp. And that's what I'm looking for the next, 19 days up until September 7th against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday Night Football. So let me know what you guys think. Drop some comments. I appreciate everybody. I'm sorry I didn't get to all your comments. I was just I wanted to get my spin out there on a couple topics, but I'll leave you guys with this. And a few months back when Gabe Davis visited the Bills, I was against it just because I felt like we need to focus on who we have already on the roster. Shakir, Keon, Palmer, Samuel. They had just signed Elijah Moore. Like, I was sold on those guys. But as things have progressed, I think the Bills might be in a similar mindset of we're not at where we thought we would be at the wide receiver position. There's nothing wrong with calling Gabe Davis, having him come to town, taking him out to dinner, and seeing what he's looking for and seeing if it can work. And I would honestly be okay if by the end of the week, Gabe Davis is a Buffalo Bill. I don't think it puts any added pressure on Keon Coleman, on Khalil Shakir, on Joshua Palmer. The guys that it does put a little pressure on are the Curtis Samuels and the Elijah Moores and Tyrell Shavers. And what does Sean McDermott say? Iron sharpens iron. So I'll leave you guys with that. Thank you for watching First and Five. I will be back this week. I appreciate each and every one of you. Go Bills.